All right, everybody. I do have 7 o'clock by my watch, and we definitely want to respect your time, and we want to allow as much time as we can for possible questions. So we will go ahead and get started. Again, tonight's event is going to be all about financial aid here at Missouri State, the processes, the options, and all those opportunities that you have. My name is Matt. I am with the Office of Admission, and I am going to be mostly hanging out in the Q&A tonight, so you might not see me too much after this, but we actually have a great pair of speakers tonight from our Office of Student Financial Aid. I'm going to go ahead and have them introduce themselves, and let's start with you, Kelsey.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Kelsey Burton, and I work in financial aid as a counselor in the scholarship team.
Hello, good evening. My name is Trinell Morgan, and I am the graduate assistant. I'm currently pursuing my graduate program in the social work department, and I've also done my undergraduate here as well, and I'm working in the scholarship unit.
Okay, well, thank you, Kelsey and Trinell. Everyone, before we do jump into the presentation, we do have a few housekeeping notes that I want you to be aware of. So first and foremost, we would like your questions. I know financial aid is one of those topics where there are really almost an infinite number of questions that you might have, and we'd love for you to share those with us. In Zoom webinar, you have a Q&A tab, and you can use that Q&A tab to send us along your questions. And then for others, you also have the option of upvoting questions. So if you see someone's question and you're like, that's really interesting, I'd love to hear that answered, go ahead and give it an upvote, and we'll definitely prioritize the questions based on what you want to know about. Also want you to be aware that we might not be able to get to all the questions, and we'll follow up individually in that case. Also, just want to warn everybody that the questions will be able to be seen by all attendees. So certainly we ask that you not share anything private or personal about your particular financial situation in the Q&A. We would love to help you through email, through phone call, or even through appointment if you do have some things that are unique to your particular situation. So again, just please keep anything that's confidential out of the Q&A if you would. The second reminder we want you to be aware of is that we are recording this session. We understand that you might not be able to stay the entire time, or that you might want to reference something later. So we're recording this on YouTube, and here in a couple days after we do some editing, we will send you out a link to that YouTube video, and it will have timestamps. So it'll help you go through the video to find out what you actually want to hear again. And then the final thing that I have before I hand it over to our presenters is we've got a poll for you tonight, and that's just to help you or help us learn a little bit more about you, our audience. So if you would, please give us your feedback. And you can see we've got 4 questions. Who's joining us tonight? So essentially, is it a student, is it a parent, or is it another advisor? What best describes you or your student if you're a parent? Where do you reside, whether that's in-state or out-of-state? And then have you already done the FAFSA, or what are your plans as it pertains to the FAFSA? So the answers are streaming in. I'll give this a few more seconds just so we get certainly a gross majority of folks having responded. Okay, I am going to go ahead and end our poll and show the results. So I don't think terribly surprising when it comes to financial aid. It looks like we do have a majority, about 65% of our attendees tonight being parents, but also a decent number of students. Also, I think maybe not terribly surprising is the overwhelming majority of students here with us tonight are incoming freshmen as opposed to transfer students. We've got a majority of Missouri residents, but a decent percentage of out-of-state students. And then kind of half and half. It looks like a little over half have already done the FAFSA, and then certainly a significant minority have not done the FAFSA, but do plan to. So thank you, everybody, for your input. This is useful information for us. And with that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Kelsey and Trinell.
Hi, everybody. Thanks again for showing your interest in Missouri State and general financial aid information. Trinell and I will be going over all the basics here. So first things first, during your time at Missouri State, all financial aspects are going to be ran through these 3 offices primarily. So we've got the Office of Student Financial Aid. That's where I reside. We're responsible for generating and creating your financial aid package. We also take in scholarship checks and add those to your account. We also disperse all the financial aid, so loans, scholarships, we apply that aid towards your bill. And we also look at FAFSA and general eligibility for other scholarships and grants. Student financial services often gets confused with financial aid, but they're kind of on the other side of the spectrum. So they handle all things to do with your bill and can answer questions regarding that. They also send out the monthly statements of your bills. And they can also be sent to your parents too. And finally, they also administer the payment plan. And we'll talk a little bit more about that down the road. And also, part of financial services is the bursar's office. So that's going to be the in-person location that you can pay your balance off. They do accept cash and check at the bursar's office, or you can pay online digitally with your card or bank information. Both students and parents can help pay for your bill.
Alrighty, so starting with the fundamentals. So what is financial aid? Financial aid is any money from outside of the family that pays for your college experience. So there are different categories in financial aid. Starting with scholarships. Scholarships is free money, typically based on your academic performance or financial need. Grants is also free money, but it's primarily based on your FAFSA and your family contribution as well. Employment is money that is earned, and specifically within this presentation, we'll be talking about work study, and that'll be a little later on. And then lastly, loans. This is money that is borrowed from federal loans as well as private loans. And each of these categories will go more in depth throughout the presentation.
So on this slide here, we have some figures based on the current academic year. They are estimates and averages, so everything that you might see could be a little different. You can see a couple things looking at this chart. You can see that we consider both direct and indirect costs. So some items you'll see directly on your MSU bill, but financial aid considers things that you might have to pay for that's not on your MSU bill, such as books and supplies, transportation and gas. Another thing you might notice is all of these numbers are the same across the board, except for tuition rate for Missouri residents versus out-of-state residents. That is because they are charged a higher rate for on-campus in-person classes. There is a way, however, to receive in-state tuition for those out-of-state students. We'll talk a little bit more about that on a future slide as well. And let me emphasize the importance that these are estimates. So it is kind of think a la carte. It depends on how many hours you're enrolled in. Are you choosing to live on campus in the dorms? Are you bringing a car? So there's a lot of things that go into the equation to consider. So these numbers are not set in stone for anyone by any means. Another thing to point out, if you are considering joining a fraternity or sorority, those charges are not billed directly to MSU. So those are going to be separate charges that you'd pay to that sorority.
So there are several options for funding your experience here at Missouri State. For some students, it will be all three categories. For some, there will be two categories or just one. So starting with institutional aid, this includes any type of aid that is given to you by the university, such as scholarships. And we have both automatic and competitive scholarships, which we will distinguish both of the two in the presentation. We also have federal and state aid. This is determined by filling out your FAFSA. This will include your loans, grants, as well as work study. Next, we have private scholarships. We encourage you to apply. You're going to apply you can do every semester throughout your college experience, every year, but continue to do it every year because you can always include free money towards your experience. And this does not have to only be within Missouri State. This can be on a local level, statewide, nationwide. This can come from your local high school, church, anything that can provide you any type of private scholarships that can help fund it. Next, we have self-help. You can save up for it. We also have state aid. And then private lenders, as we talked about before, which are going to be loans. And this is just an additional factor if any of the other categories are not fully paying for your experience. So this can be a private loan from a bank, as well as a private loan from the federal government.
So on this slide here, we see two major aspects of financial aid that if you're attending Missouri State, you're likely going to need to do both of these steps every single year. The first thing I want to mention is the FAFSA. I see a lot of you guys have already started that process, which is awesome. So good job. And those who haven't, there's still time. So no worries there. But every year you actually fill out the FAFSA. Some people think it was a one time and done, but it's actually every single year. And it just opened October 1st. We do encourage students to apply as close as possible to October 1st. And that's because some institutions are given limited funding, and that includes grants and work study. So how Missouri State decides to award that limited funding is based on your FAFSA submission date. So it's kind of like first come, first serve for some of that limited funding. So definitely apply for that FAFSA as soon as you can. It is free. They have a really great website that walks you through every single step. Once you submit that FAFSA, you'll instantly receive a student aid report, and it's your job to look over that report. It's going to go over everything that you put on the FAFSA, and you can make sure that that information was put in correctly. We definitely recommend submitting corrections to your FAFSA well ahead of starting school, just to ensure that financial aid is ready and on time for when that first bill comes around. Another thing that you can see on the student aid report is to see if you were selected for what's called verification. It is something that's at random by the federal government. We're not picking on anyone, but basically what happens is when you're selected, you are required to submit supporting documentation for the information you put in on that FAFSA. So typically we see required documentation being tax returns and W-2s, things like that. So once you send in your FAFSA to MSU, we will process and review that FAFSA and build you a financial aid package. And then it will be your job to go into your My Missouri State student portal and make an action on that financial aid offer. And that also has to be done every year. And you'll have to go in and accept or decline that financial aid. And you'll also want to remember that some of that aid requires multiple or secondary steps. For example, if you are taking out a federal student loan, first-time loan lenders are required to complete the Master Promissory Note, or MPN, and entrance counseling. It's a one-time requirement. It's also done on the same website that the FAFSA is filled out on. And also scholarships. If you are awarded a scholarship, you also are required to complete and sign the agreement form before that scholarship will pay out. So you want to be sure everything's in order before that first bill is due.
Great. So getting more in tune with scholarships, we'll first start with our automatic scholarships. So automatic scholarships are only awarded to incoming freshmen attending MSU directly from high school. Awarding is done on a sliding scale with a combination of your high school GPA and your ACT and SAT scores. Something to note, throughout your senior year of high school, your scholarship can change for the better. So we take grades up into the 8th semester, and we take ACT and SAT scores until the April test date. So for a good reference, if you were awarded the deans based on your application when you first applied to the university, and you so happen to increase your ACT and SAT score, we can go ahead and upgrade you to potentially the provost or board of governors based on your GPA and the score that you received. So please keep mindful of that. As well, these are not combinable. So if you end up getting the board of governors one time and the deans another, we will go ahead and take off the lowest amount. So you'll be only awarded the highest scholarship. So unfortunately, they cannot be combined. Another thing to note, you will be provided as well as a $1,000 stipend towards your housing. This is only for on-campus housing, which includes the residence hall and apartment residence. This is not including the sorority and fraternity homes, as well as apartments in the surrounding area. There is a list on the website of all the residence halls that qualify. So just be mindful of that. Scholarship entirely. However, if you do move off campus, we will take off that housing portion for you.
All right, and also just recently, MSU actually included even more automatic scholarships. We realize that not everyone is great at the standardized test. So we actually included automatic scholarships based on high school GPA only. Like Trinell mentioned, you can increase or upgrade your scholarships based on GPA through your 8th semester in high school. But you cannot stack scholarships. So if you qualify for one and upgrade, we will only be paying out that higher scholarship. An important thing to note is you do need to be admitted by February 1st to be considered for any of these automatic scholarships.
So next we have competitive scholarships. Like we mentioned in the last slide, these scholarships come from the institution. However, these particular ones on this page are not automatic. You will have to apply for them individually. You can find each of these applications on the website, so you can feel free to take a picture of it, or as we stated earlier, we'll go ahead and email you this video as well. Please note that the application requirements and deadlines are on the website as well as the application itself. For submission of applications, there will be a link for it, or it will tell you how to submit it either through via email or fax. You can always email us to just check in if we got in your application. It will give you some type of reference to it if we haven't or have not. Particularly for the A+ recognition scholarship, it is not the same award as the State of Missouri A+ program, which is only available for community colleges or 2-year institutions. If you have specific questions, you can go ahead and put in the chat and we can go ahead and answer those for you. This scholarship was created to recognize those who achieve A+ status, and it cannot be combined with any automatic scholarships. So as we said before, if you're given a Dean's and you get the A+ as well, unfortunately the Dean's is more, so we would take off the A+ and only award you Dean's. The majority of our MSU scholarships require students to be enrolled in at least 12 credit hours each semester. So please take note of that. If you do not meet the qualifications by the end of the year, for the renewal criteria, well, unfortunately, we'll have to remove it. All of the criteria information for renewal is going to be on the agreement form that is given to you once you've been awarded the scholarship. So we do ask you to read it as concise and precise as possible so that you understand what the obligations are for it to renew each year. In addition, several of our scholarships are renewable for 4 years. So that's going to be for an 8-semester period. And if you're going to graduate early or anything in that nature, we can accommodate those resources as well.
Awesome. So according to the poll, I think we had at least one transfer student. So that list slide is for you. We do have automatic transfer scholarships too. An important thing to know is that they are only eligible to transfer students coming from a two-year institution or community college. If you're transferring from a 4-year institution, unfortunately, you will not be eligible for these. You can see we have 2 automatic scholarships and we have a couple application-based transfer scholarships, including the out-of-state fee waivers and continue the tradition, which Trinell will talk a little bit more about next.
Yes, so we do have out-of-state tuition waivers for students that are coming from out of the state of Missouri. Just to note, for those who are going to be awarded a automatic scholarship, such as the deans, the provosts, and the board of governors, if you are an out-of-state student who are receiving one of those scholarships, you will receive an out-of-state fee waiver for those as well. You don't have to worry about these particular ones. If you are awarded that, this is going to be separate. However, you do get that waiver as well. Particularly for the out-of-state tuition fee waiver, each of these are different criteria that you can meet to receive that fee waiver. However, you do not have to meet all of them. You just only have to meet one. So if you have a 3.25 high school GPA or your top 50% class rank, an ACT composite or super score of a 24, or or an SAT composite or super score of an 1160, you can be awarded this scholarship. And this is not something that you have to apply for. We will automatically award you if you meet the criteria. Nonetheless, the Continue the Tradition is a scholarship that you have to apply for. This is going to be only for students who are immediate relatives of a MSU graduate. So this has to be your mother or father or your grandparent. This application can be found on the website as well. It will ask you for the identification of the graduate as well as your information. Once we have verified that the individual was a Missouri State graduate, we will award you the scholarship. There is no difference in the amounts. They still pay the same amount for your tuition. However, just one is one that you have to apply for and the other one is automatic.
Just real fast, I wanted to mention on these out-of-state fee waivers, they are only applied to courses taken on campus, and that's because online classes are the same rate for in-state and out-of-state. So the out-of-state fee waiver kind of acts like a coupon, reducing the out-of-state tuition on campus seated courses to that in-state tuition. We do estimate these waivers to be valued over $8,000 per year. So it's a really great deal to have that added to your financial aid package. And like Trinell said, it will be automatically added. And also, like our other scholarships, do require renewal criteria to keep receiving these every year. And real fast, I want to talk a little bit about the MSU Foundation. So we are really, really lucky here at Missouri State to have an awesome group of donors that provide and donate tons of money just to MSU students every single year. We do open an annual application for these scholarships. It's a one application for over 1,000 scholarships. So you don't have to apply individually. It'll automatically apply you to over 1,000 scholarships. We have really great opportunity with these scholarships. Usually we see about 1 in 4 students selected, and some of these are even renewable. So they are something you can carry along throughout your academic career. One thing to mention too is how we've touched on, you cannot stack institutional, automatic, or competitive scholarships. You can have as many foundation scholarships as you are eligible and are selected to receive. So you can have foundation scholarships and institutional scholarships. So it's a really great opportunity for you guys. And an important thing to know is you can apply to these every single year. Not only does your eligibility change, but there's always new scholarships being added. So it's just a really great opportunity. And I will say you do have to be an admitted student before you can apply. As you see, it does say November 1st is when that opens, but it doesn't close till March 1st. So you do have some time to work on that, but definitely suggest that for everyone listening.
Next, we have outside scholarships. So outside scholarships are going to be scholarships that can be found outside of the university you wish to attend. So consider local organizations and businesses, talk to your high school counselor, maybe some places that with your hobbies, your religion, things in that nature, any place that was going to provide you with any type of outside funding. One recommendation, if you already know the degree field that you're going to consider, reach out to those large businesses and companies in that area because they potentially may have a scholarship for individuals pursuing that major. For example, things like Google Scholar, the Coca-Cola program, Bill Gates Foundation, each of these different organizations do fund scholarships and they are usually gravitating towards a certain major. So a good source of it is you can Google it and things of that nature, or you can use more certified sites such as the FAFSA website. So apply early, apply often, and continue to apply even when you feel as if you already have enough money for the college of your choice. There's always more that could be received on your behalf.
That's right, Janelle. Applying for outside scholarships is really like a part-time job, but down the road, it is worth it. So I do want to talk about a couple other outside scholarship resources. I see we had a majority of Missouri residents. So first I'll talk about those. There are a couple local scholarship foundation organizations that provide a lot of money to our MSU students, including the Missouri Scholarship and Loan Foundation, based out in St. Louis, and the Community Foundation of the Ozarks, kind of more local here to us. These websites are listed here. That's a great opportunity to take a picture if you guys want to refer back to. They have a lot of scholarships available. They're application based. I think some of them are even like our application, where it's one application and applies you to all of them. So again, another thing to look for every single year. Down below, I've got some really big scholarship providers we see here at Missouri State: Scholarship America, Sallie Mae, and Big Future. We have a ton of money coming in from all of these here. And a lot of these scholarships, like we mentioned, are even renewable. So not only would it be great to have MSU scholarships, but also outside scholarships to count on down the road. I will say that November is the National Scholarship Month. And so a lot of these organizations and foundations tend to start putting scholarship applications out early, starting in November. So definitely be aware of those dates and timelines. So just be on the search for these extra scholarships. And don't be discouraged to keep applying down the road as well. Myself personally, I thought scholarships were really for freshmen only, but it turns out a lot of these scholarships can just be for sophomores or higher. So it's definitely something to consider applying for every single year.
So the 2022-2023 FAFSA is currently open. Right here below is our school code. So please take note of that. If you have not already filled out your FAFSA, we do highly encourage you to do that as soon as possible. You can go to www.studentaid.gov. We'll also put that in the chat as well for you for the free application for federal student aid. Please note, there are several websites like the .gov website, but however, they will ask you for some form of payment. Please do not put any form of payment inside of it. This is a free application. So if it does ask you for that, go ahead and just log off and then try a different website. It is going to end in .gov, so take note of that as well. If you're still shopping around for different schools, please note that you can also put 10 different school codes in your FAFSA website as well. You can put ours as well as any other schools that you're interested in, so that as soon as your FAFSA is completed, it will be presented to those applications so that you don't have to worry about sending them once you've already been admitted. The FAFSA also provides students with eligibility to grants and federal loans. This includes Pell Grant, Access Missouri, Federal Supplement Grant, Work Study, subsidized loans, as well as unsubsidized loans. So if you have not applied for the FAFSA, unfortunately, you won't be qualified for these particular things. These are helpful tools to fund your education, so you want to get as much money as possible. In particular, the Work Study and Supplement Grant have limited funding, so MSU awards based on the eligibility and date of when your FAFSA was submitted. So it is a first come, first served basis. So if you are interested in Work Study or the grants that you are eligible for, I would submit it as soon as possible. The sooner you apply, the better potential of aid that you will have.
Right, so like Trinell was talking about, the Work Study is one of those limited funding items that we have at MSU. So we do have to award that based on FAFSA submission date. Work Study is also only eligible to students who are Pell Grant eligible, which is based on an EFC provided through the FAFSA, and students who are at least half-time. So that requires at least 6 credit hours per semester. One thing to note, the difference between Work Study and not Work Study, really the only difference is who is paying those bills. So Work Study is paid for by the federal government, whereas not Work Study jobs are paid for through MSU departments. typically the wages are even the same for these positions. So don't be discouraged if you don't qualify for work study. If you want to work on campus, there's always a lot of jobs available. If you see, actually, most of our jobs are not work study. We always have job openings available on our website. So please visit and start applying for those jobs if you guys are interested. I definitely, as a student worker myself, when I was a student here, definitely recommend it. A lot of the times your bosses are going to be a lot more flexible and they know you're a student. So they know you've got an upcoming test or a works or a study group. Most likely they are going to accommodate to your student schedule first. And not every job out there will do that for you. So I definitely recommend working on campus, especially if you live on campus. It's just another great way to start saving and help pay for your bill.
So here is the infamous timeline. So if you do have your phones out, you can go ahead and take a picture of this because it's a layout for the 2022-2023 semester. So first thing first, it is the FAFSA. The FAFSA deadline, the FAFSA does open on October 1st. However, we do ask that students submit it as soon as possible due to being eligible for grants and being eligible for any other aid that can come as soon as possible. The latest that you can turn in your FAFSA to be eligible for grants is February 1st. So the sooner you get it in, the sooner you don't have to worry about trying to fill that out so late. However, students can still turn in the FAFSA after the date, but the sooner the better. And as we said before, if you do not meet that February 1st deadline, you have missed the deadline for those particular grants as well. Next is November 1st. That is going to be the MSU Foundation Scholarship opening date that can be located on your My Missouri State account. Next, we have fall 2021. So that's when you're going to be applying for your on-campus housing. In due time, the residence halls and directors will give you the opportunity to fill out that. The date for that has not opened just yet. December 1st, 2021 is the earliest that you can apply for the MSU competitive scholarships. The earliest for the deadline, I apologize. So that deadline is going to be December 1st, and it's going to also have the deadline on the applications as well. December 2021 is when your aid offers will be mailed out to you. So this is going to include any scholarships that you've been awarded, any federal aid that we went ahead and put onto your account. We're going to send you send you a mailed letter about it, as well as a beautiful certificate just indicating the scholarships you've been awarded. As I stated earlier, you can have the potential for upgrades. So you may see that you get a couple of extra mailed offers throughout the year. So just keep track of those. You can also go through your My Missouri State account to look at that awarding as well. Next on, as I said before, February 1st, 2022 is a priority FAFSA deadline. March 1st is when the MSU Foundation Scholarship application closes. Summer of 2022 is when student orientation, advisement, and registration, also known as SOAR, will start. This is where you're going to register for classes. You'll also get to meet with different departments such as the financial aid office to go over all the different things to help prepare you for that upcoming semester. August 1st, this is going to be the checkpoint for a lot of important documentation, including your financial aid, loans sheet, your interest counseling, your promissory note signature, private loans applied during that time, as well as the waiting list opens for the work study. So everything that you have to do documentation-wise, we do actually do that on August 1st. So once classes start, all we have to do is have a smooth process into adding your aid to your account. August 5th, 2022 is when the fall statements are emailed to you. And then August 30th, 2022 is going to be when financial aid dispersed. For the last two boxes, just a little note, you'll look at your account primarily during SOAR as well as during the first week of classes. You'll probably see that there aren't as many scholarships or aid that you're eligible for on there. For a good example, if you're awarded the deans and you didn't see that it has dispersed during that first week, this is because we do not disperse any funding until the second week of classes. This is because the first week of classes is a change of schedule period. During this time, you can change your schedule as freely as your heart desire. If you change your major, if you find that 8 a.m. is not your favorite thing and you like to go to a 12 o'clock class, so you can go online, offline, anything that your hearts would like to do during that first week. Then the second week of classes, the scholarship team is going to go ahead and freeze that account just for a limited period of time so that we can go based off what that statement is saying. We'll go ahead and disperse your aid. You'll get a notice that your aid has been dispersed. It's going to tell you if you're getting a refund or if you still have a bill, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then you'll get to see that. So if you're a little bit worried about your scholarships paying out that first week of classes, check back to this timeline. It's not going to happen until August 30th.
All right, so about those bills, like I mentioned, the bill and the payment plan is going to be handled through financial services. So if you guys have additional questions about the payment plan in particular, I definitely recommend reaching out to them. I do want to mention it is automatic, so you don't have to apply for the payment plan. Once you have your bill, financial services will automatically enroll you. The bill is broken down into payment of thirds. This is just to help you manage paying a large bill out of pocket all at once. The important days to remember here is the 10th of every month. And this is important because after the 10th of every month, anything remaining in your account balance is going to be issued a 1% financial charge. And the most important of these three payment dates for the fall semester in particular is going to be that November 10th date. So typically registration opens for the next semester for spring around in November, and financial services can monitor your account and put a hold on your account if your bill is greater than $200. So please be sure every 10th of the month, you might be expecting a 1% charge. Definitely try all you can to get that remaining balance below 200 November 10th. That way you can register for the next semester. I know a lot of those classes have limited seating capacity, so we definitely want people to register for all the classes they are interested in.
So just an overview of everything that we went over, some special tips and notes. Please carefully read everything we send you, whether it is via email or through the mail. This is going to be important information for you and your funding. A lot of the things that we send through email is going to go to your My Missouri State email. So check that regularly. As a student, I check it at least once a day. This is where financial aid is going to email you. Any other important departments in the university, they'll email you there as well. Your professors. So check that as often as possible. That way you can stay as current and as knowledgeable on your account. Make sure to communicate regularly with student finances, statements, and aid with our office. There are thousands of us on this campus, and unfortunately, if something is incorrect or you feel that you're missing anything, please bring it to our attention so that we can look individually on your account to make sure that we fix anything. We want to make sure that you're satisfied and you get all the aid that you were awarded, because this is something that you've worked hard for, and we don't want you to miss out on the things that you earned.
That's right. So I know that financial aid and paying for school can be a big, scary thing, but just know financial aid and all of us are here for you guys. Admissions, we're all here for you to help answer questions. So another important recap, definitely need to apply for federal and state aid every single year. And this is done typically through filling out the FAFSA. So this opens October 1st every year. And again, like we mentioned, the closest you can get that into October 1st, the better potential financial aid package you might be eligible for. The best would be February 1st if you can't get it in by October 1st. But we can still receive FAFSAs past that, but you may not be as eligible for as much financial aid. And then finally, I want to mention again that MSU Foundation annual scholarship application, really great opportunity just for MSU students. We did about 2.5 million in scholarships just this year. So definitely encourage you guys to apply to that application when it opens on November 1st. And thanks so much for joining us. And if you guys have additional questions, we're going to go through some now, but if you feel like you need to meet with any of our counselors individually, we do have right now Zoom and phone call appointments that you can set up a one-on-one with any of our financial aid counselors to answer any questions that you guys might have. And I think for now, I'll go ahead and stop our share, or I'll leave it up for a little bit, and in case you guys need to take some pictures, and pass it over to Matt.
Okay, well, we do have some great questions, I think. Some that were maybe covered, but I think are worth maybe readdressing. And first and foremost is about the aid offer itself. Can you guys just reiterate, is that going to be mailed out to a student physically, or is that going to be sent through email?
Yes, I apologize for the confusion. It is going to be mailed individually. So whatever your primary address is on your application, we're going to mail it to that address.
Okay, question about the A+ scholarship. If a student decides to use A+ to attend the community college first, did they get any sort of A+ scholarship after transferring to Missouri State?
So that A+ recognition scholarship is one of the scholarships only for incoming freshmen coming directly from high school. So in that situation, we do actually have a lot of students utilize that A+ program at the community college or two-year institution and get the whole entire use of that A+ program and then transfer to Missouri State. In that scenario, you would only be eligible for the transfer scholarships. So the important thing about those transfer scholarships, again, is you cannot attend a four-year institution anytime between high school and MSU. So MSU would have to be that first four-year institution, but definitely can use the A+ all until an associate's degree at a two-year, and then transfer into MSU and possibly earn one of those transfer scholarships.
And actually, a related question to transfer scholarships is, if their child graduates early, graduates high school in January, and takes classes at their local community college for the spring semester before starting Missouri State in the fall, at that point, are they going to be eligible for freshman scholarships or only for transfer scholarships?
So that is a tricky one. Early graduates, we definitely recommend you to contact our office so you can meet with one of our counselors. It seems like every student's situation can be a little different. The main thing that financial aid will have to consider is when the actual graduation date for your walking to receive that degree will be. So for you being an early graduate, I definitely recommend just reaching out to our office so we can kind of ask some questions and determine what category you would need to fall into. But there's definitely still scholarships automatic eligible for you, but we just might need to know in advance about your particular situation.
This is one we actually got from a couple different folks. I think it's an interesting question. You mentioned the foundation scholarship application running from November 1st through, I believe it's March 1st. Is there a benefit to applying early, or does it really matter when you're applying for foundation scholarships?
The one thing I would say, it doesn't hurt to start early. Having the application in first is not going to benefit you versus anyone else, but starting it early is good. And that's because there's a lot of essay questions on that scholarship application. Like I mentioned, it's one application for over 1,000 scholarships. So it is a lengthy application. I'm sure people have done it in one night and turned it in, but I would give it some time and put some thought into it, because a lot of these scholarship committees are going to be reading those essays, and we really consider the information you share with us. And another reason about starting it early is you are asked to include references, and these references are not letters that you attach. You will email the reference that you wish to include, and that reference will be responsible on their timeline to complete that reference citing for you. So it's good to get those in early, at least requesting a reference. So that way you don't have to submit your application without any references included.
A great note is that you can also save the application and then come back to it later. So like you said, don't sit at it at one night. So get the chance to let your brain juices go and then go ahead and save it, come back, and then you can always just do it at a later date.
Question about work study. If the student earns work study and then has a work study job and earns that money, does all that money go automatically to tuition, or does the student get some of that money?
That's a great question. I forgot to include that. So both work study and not work study jobs, they work like real jobs. They will pay the student directly, does not apply towards the MSU bill. They'll receive I believe it's a monthly check for their work hours they've done in that time frame. So it is based on hours. It's an hourly rate for both work study and not work study, and the bill goes to the student. So, or the payment goes directly to the student. And so they would be responsible if they are using work study to pay for their bills at Missouri State. They would be responsible for going in and making those payments on their account.
Okay, got a deep cut here of federal aid. Does Missouri State offer or accept the federal Teach Grant?
Yes, we do. We do have the Teach Grant in our financial aid office. I personally don't handle that fund, so I may not be the best person to answer those questions. However, definitely reaching out to our main financial aid email address, they will direct you to the person who handles that fund and can help answer some more questions. But I do know they have Teach Grant at Missouri State, yes.
This one just came in as I throw my mouse all over the place. How many presidential scholarships are typically offered?
Typically, each year it is about 40 students. It is highly competitive. And usually how that process works is you will apply on that application on the website. The deadline for that one is the earliest. So that's the December 1st deadline. So it is upcoming. If you are selected to be a candidate for the presidential scholarship, you'll be invited to attend the presidential scholarship committee, and they will ask you interview questions and determine if you are going to be one of those 40 students. So it is a pretty fun day, and it is, like I said, highly competitive, but it's one of the best scholarships that MSU automatically or competitively offers. So
I promise, yeah, the interview is not as bad as it sounds. As someone who's went through the application process and the interview, just be yourself, be as genuine, answer the questions, and get to know a lot of the students that are going to be there, because they're going to be individuals that you may see on campus. But it's overall a great experience.
And they give you a big old buffet of food afterwards, so that helps settle the nerves.
Free food, the best thing in the world. Just a clarification, Kelsey, because I think there's still a little bit of confusion on the work study. Would it be accurate to say the student is going to get a paycheck, and then it's going to be up to the student to decide what they then do with that money? They could put it towards their costs, but there's nothing that says they have to put it towards their costs to Missouri State.
That's correct. Yeah. So it does behave like a normal outside world job, on campus, off campus, every single thing is normal. The only difference is who is paying those wages. Even though they are going to be working at Missouri State for Missouri State departments, the federal government is actually paying those paychecks to the student, but it does go directly to the student, and then they would be responsible for using that money, direct deposit, and send it back to MSU.
Question we've had a couple times, and I answered in the chat, but I think it might be good for you guys to answer as well, is there an equivalent to the continuing the tradition if you're an in-state student? Is there an in-state legacy scholarship?
Unfortunately, there's not an alumni automatic scholarship. That continue the tradition is specifically for the out-of-state students, as it is a waiver reducing out-of-state costs to in-state. However, I will say, I know the MSU Foundation scholarship application does include a couple, at least, scholarships that are based on alumni relationships. So in that foundation application, there'll be a lot of questions, essays and questions, and one of them will ask, are you a relative to an alumni? And we'll ask you to include that. So generally that would be the closest scholarship or in-state students for a related alumni.
Okay. We had a question about billing, whether billing was done on a full academic year basis or you billed one semester at a time.
Yeah, so on this financial aid offer that you're going to receive, it is going to be based on your entire academic year. So if you were offered a student loan for $5,000, it's only going to be $2,500 for fall and $2,500 for spring. And that's for financial aid side. For your billing side, we're only going to be adding bill charges for what you currently have this semester. And that's because every semester changes. You know, some students want to be in 15 hours their fall semester, and then in spring only want to be in 12 hours and then move into a different dorm. So there's always going to be changes every semester that the charges won't be added until we know exactly what the student selects. Financial aid, as I mentioned, is going to be based on the entire year. So again, if you have a scholarship, that's $2,000 per year, or offered for you for $2,000 renewable each year. It is $1,000 per semester, split equally there.
Okay, give me just 1 second. A question that this may be getting our cart ahead of the horse, but maybe it's interesting for you guys to share. Parent permissions, parent access, parents being able to go in and see financial aid, billing information, all that. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about that process?
Yeah, so it's times have changed. Now the child has the responsibility and the power. We have the student provide a request if the parent wants to have access. So this is done through what's called a FERPA. It's similar to HIPAA, but for financial aid and financial information. So the student will actually fill out a FERPA saying, Mom can have access to my financial aid information, or Dad can have access, but it's not automatically granted. If the parent calls in or comes to our front desk and inquires about the student's information, we will always ask for a FERPA. If there is not a FERPA on file, unfortunately, we're not going to be able to talk to Mom or Dad or any relative that might be asking those questions. So if Mom, Dad, if you guys want access, definitely ask your child for permission and have them fill out that FERPA for you. As far as a parent side login, there won't be necessarily the same side of things that the student would have. The only kind of parent login that I know of is helping to pay for the bill. So that's again something that the student would set up. They will add you as a payer for their bill and send you a request over email, and you will create an account for their payments, and that you'll only have a little bit of access. So it's mainly into the students' hands for these kind of things.
And we did get a question, so just to specify to everybody, that's FERPA is FERPA. And Kelsey, is that FERPA release something that they will do electronically, or is that the paper form they need to fill out?
It is digital now, so we're very happy about that. Once you're admitted, you can fill out that FERPA anytime. It's going to be straight on our financial aid website, so missouri-state.edu/financial aid. There's going to be a column of links on your left side, and I believe it's almost at the very top. You'll see FERPA release, and you'll want to fill that out. I will mention it is per individual. So if both Mom and Dad want to have access, that the student is going to have to fill out the FERPA twice for each Mom and Dad. Another important thing about the FERPA is not universally shared across campus. So if you have a FERPA on file with financial aid, that's not the same as having a FERPA on file with financial services. So each department does have their own FERPA. So most of the time, financial services, financial aid are the big ones that we see people filling out those FERPAs for, but you can fill out a FERPA at any time and request that access. The longest you can have the FERPA on file for is up to 4 years. So it does last for a long time as well.
Side note, when you are choosing the timeline, if you click immediately, that's only for that immediate moment. That does not mean forever. So make sure you're more specific when you're clicking the time frame for that one.
Right, yeah, on the FERPA form, there is, I think, 3 boxes you can indicate on how long you want the FERPA to last. And as I mentioned, 4 years is the longest, but there is a box that says expire immediately, which would be a one-time use. So that's our least favorite when that happens, because FERPAs will have to be filled out again. So.
And Kelsey, we've had a request, actually, if you wouldn't mind going back to show the automatic scholarships matrices again.
Let's see. Now, are we talking about the sliding scale? And all of these charts here are also on our main public website as well under freshman scholarships. So you guys can refer back to these as you improve your scores or GPA. Another thing too on this slide I wanted to highlight was we are recently accepting super scores. So that means if you take the ACT, SAT multiple times, we will take the highest ranking in each of those categories. So say science was great on one test, but everything else wasn't so great. Took another test, math was the best, everything else wasn't so great. We actually will take the highest average of all of their highest categories. So taking the ACT multiple times is only going to benefit you. So again, that ACT can be improved up through April test date. In-state Missouri residents, if you score on the ACT a 31 or higher, you also are eligible for the Bright Flight program, which is an additional form of free financial aid. So definitely recommend you guys to keep applying for the ACT and taking that test. Even though it's not the funnest, it can definitely help you out down the road.
And then we had, and I know this is getting the cart ahead of the horse, so I would stress before I even ask this question that there's nothing you need to do right now. There's nothing you can do right now. But we did get a question about special circumstances and those situations. Do you have a general idea, Kelsey, of when that would be available to students for 2022, 2023?
I do actually. So they don't put those forms out on our website until about March or April. So and for everyone who doesn't know what special circumstance is, your FAFSA that you're submitting for this fall 22 and spring 23 is going to be based off of your financials on the 2020 financial year. So we realize, being a little outdated back, that may not be reflective of your current situation. So we have a request called special circumstances. I will mention it is a lot of documentation. It is not something that is necessarily easy to do. And it only should be really considered for people who have a significant or drastic difference in their income. If your AGI is 1,000 or 2,000 different, it may not make much difference on your actual FAFSA. But if you have a major income change or divorce or things like that are different than what was indicated on your FAFSA, it definitely is worth inquiring about the special circumstances process and considering filling out that request. It also does take a very long time for those to process. So typically we do see the review taking up to 2 to 3 months, depending on how much documentation is requested and submitted.
Good question. Interesting question here about the Bright Flight. Does Bright Flight consider super score or just composite score?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Off the top of my head, I really am not certain. I almost think that they're not, but they have been considering it, is what my gut says. But that information is going to be listed. It is just like the Access Missouri grant. Both of those, Bright Flight and Access Missouri grant, are provided through the Missouri Department of Higher Education. So all of their policy and regulation is listed on their website. But I'm pretty certain right now SuperScore is not. But please please correct me. I would love to
Well,
hopefully one day have that happen. So.
and for everyone's reference, I did put the link to the website. What is currently listed on the Department of Higher Education's website does say pretty explicitly composite. So I think you're right that it is composite, but I think we all know that super score is becoming more common. So as you said, that could change.
Right. I do remember, I think they had discussions about it one day. So that would be very awesome if it could happen for fall 22. But if not, keep taking the ACT because you guys have time. So.
One thing I did want to address, because I think it's been requested or asked a couple of different ways, is what it means to be fully admitted as far as, I think, receiving a financial aid offer, receiving a scholarship offer. And I think some folks were even referencing the enrollment deposit. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kelsey, but I don't believe the enrollment deposit is not a requirement to receive a financial aid package or receive a scholarship offer. That's, we certainly don't expect you to commit, pay that deposit.
Absolutely not. Yeah, registration won't even start happening for you guys until SOAR. So that was during summer 2022. So you can absolutely be admitted well before that registration for classes begins. Typically, the first charge I see students having on their account is going to be related to residence halls. If you remember from the timeline slide, right around now is when you can actually start applying for a specific residence hall. And typically to secure and hold in that room, they'll ask for a deposit. I think it's about $100. So typically that's the first charge I ever see on anyone's account. But by fully admitted, it just means you'll need to have the congratulations letter. You are now a student. This is your Bear Pass M number. Things of that nature, have access to your My Missouri State Student Portal.
All right. And provided this is good, Kelsey, with you and good with you, Trinell. Actually, Trinell, it sounds like maybe you want to answer the question about how many students apply to the presidential scholarship.
So currently there isn't a number that is out publicly on how many students have applied for the presidential scholars due to the application still being open. However, we do encourage you to apply if you meet the qualifications. You are provided an interview if you meet the qualifications of the application. So you're not gonna be eliminated not offered an interview if you don't, like, through a process of, oh, this student didn't meet this thing or this thing, wrapping it up. If you meet the qualifications, you will be given an interview. So apply if you meet the qualifications.
And you can see they have, they're a little persistent, maybe asking in the past how many students might apply for the presidential scholarship.
When I went through, and it was just a reference in 2016, their group interviews based, an estimate wise, I want to say there are definitely about 100 students. So they're about double the amount that we typically give out for awards. But do apply and do proceed with the interview if you meet the qualifications.
And since this has came in a couple times, I guess I'll go ahead and add it. If even if you've already been admitted, anytime you send us something new to admissions, whether that is an updated transcript, an updated test score, letters of recommendation, those type of things, anytime you send it new to us in admissions, we will go ahead and add it to your file. Some things are going to have a bigger impact on scholarships than others. So increasing your GPA through your transcript and increasing your test score are the two that are most likely to have an impact. Correct me if I'm wrong, financial aid staff, but I don't really know if letters of recommendation are really going to have any impact on any of the scholarships, or if they're really even required for any scholarships. What do you think?
Not for any automatic. There are likely scenarios that you can include the letters of recommendation for competitive based scholarships. But if those have not been sent in with your application, you can send that into financial aid's email and we can add it to your application.
So we've reached the end of the Q&A. So I think we will go ahead, everyone, and wrap up. Really awesome job, Kelsey and Trinell. We appreciate you guys and appreciate you sharing the great information with us tonight. Very important information. I think everybody here would agree with that. I think we got to pretty much all the questions, but certainly if there's anything we want to follow up with, we'll definitely reach out to those who submitted the questions. Do want to remind everybody, we are recording this, and in a couple days after we do some editing, we will send you the link by email, and we'll use the email you used to register for the event. So if you're wondering where it's going to go, it'll head to that email that you used when you registered. We appreciate everybody showing up tonight and giving us some of your time. Again, thank you, Kelsey. Thank you, Trinell, and everybody, go Bears.
Go Bears. Have a good day, guys.